Yeah, g'day guys, Steve here from O.A.F Adventures. This is my Dagger Axis 10.5. I'm just out in the shed, sort of going to come up and coming up on doing my first camping trip out of the Dagger Axis. There's Jasper, he wants to play. Not today Jasper, we're filming. So yeah, we're out in the shed just doing a bit of a trial pack, so to speak. I've never camped out of a closed-in kayak like this. I've only done really 2 camping trips out of kayaks, and they were both out of a cheap little Intex Excursion Pro. So I just threw things in shopping bags, and I wasn't too concerned. It was flat water. We thought one was flat water, and it turns out to be there was a few sort of grade 1 or 2 rapids. But nonetheless, we got through. But I then went and purchased this Dagger Axis 10.5. Now, been very happy with this. While I've put review on the thumbnail, I'm no expert. I have to qualify this. This is my first close-in kayak. I've had this kayak for less than a year. I've probably been out on it a fair few times, and I'm very, very, very happy with it. But I'm certainly, the review is coming from a very inexperienced person. So take note that I'm no experienced kayaker by any stretch of the imagination. From my perspective as a beginner kayaker who's never been in a closed-in kayak until I bought this one. So don't overthink what I'm saying, but certainly from a beginner's point of view, I can say this kayak is a very good kayak and very simple and easy to use, and I'm very, very happy with it. We did have a bit of a weigh in. I like to weigh things. I ride motorbikes and I always weigh things and see where they're at. Its claimed weight is 23 kilos, and with those 4 track mounts on, or 3 track mounts and a Railblazer star mount, it came at 23.2 kilos. Their claimed weight is 23 kilos, so I think they're absolutely spot on with their claimed weight. It's a very comfortable kayak. The seat's good. It's very stable. It actually cruises really well. It's a crossover kayak or a multi-purpose kayak, and it really is, in my opinion, a good crossover kayak. Out on open water, it just sails along. It's got a fairly sort of, what would you call, a sea kayak or a touring kayak sort of bow on the front. It's got a drop-down skeg on the back, so it does track very well, and it cruises very well. I can cover a lot of ground, and mainly that's all I've done is some rivers and lakes on this so far, so only flat water stuff so far. But I did buy it with the idea, when I bought it I got a skirt thrown in that I could do some more rapids, and so yeah, that's what I'm planning now, to do a trip that's got some rapids, but as well the river flattens out in a lot of spots, and so I've ended up buying this Sea Tug. It's a Railblazer product that for putting under your kayak, and so yeah, just so I can get through those flat sections. It's got this river's got a lot of flat stony sections where the water's only 50 mil deep, and so there'd be stages where I might end up walking 500 metres, and rather than unload the kayak, I was hoping that I might be able to get this Sea Tug into the kayak with me, and when I come to those flat sections I can simply get the wheels out, grab onto the nice ergonomic handle at the front here, and basically just put the wheels underneath and drag it through those flat sections till the next bit of deep water, so to speak. So I'm out in the shed. Obviously I wanted to weigh it, and I wanted to weigh my camping gear and what I take typically with me, but also wanted to see how I can pack all my camping gear into the boat and see how it's all going to fit, and also just do a little bit of a test run with all my camping gear in the boat and see if I can get this Sea Tug in on top, or whether I have to tie it on top of my camping gear, that is, or on top of the boat, whether I have to tie this on top of the boat, and how easy that is to achieve. So sort of just doing a bit of experimenting in the shed. Thought I'd turn the cameras on and just have a bit of a look and see how we go. As I said, we've weighed the kayak already. It was 23.2 kilos. I'll drop some footage in of that. And so I'm going to actually weigh my camping gear as well and just do a trial pack, as I said. So, all right, we'll get into it, and I'll keep the camera rolling and we'll just see how we go. So what we have here is my Dagger Axis, obviously with my lightweight setup. So this is a 1 to 2 nighter, really not much more than a couple of nights, and in pretty light summery conditions. So you'll notice there's no clothes in here. I take a single change of clothes. I might take some thermals maybe, but certainly I'd be just wearing the Crocs all the day, and you know, might put a pair of socks on at night and not much else. But yeah, pretty lightweight sort of setup. So I ride ADV bikes, and so this is the setup that I would take on an enduro bike, an ultra lightweight ADV bike, and so I'm using the same sort of setup to to go in the kayak. As I say, 1 to 2 nighters, mild conditions. Not doing this in the middle of winter. I'm generally going to do this sort of stuff in the summer. We'll ride ADV bikes in the winter and do a bit of kayaking in the summer. And so yeah, this is where this is sort of started. So I'll just quickly go through this. And so as I said before, I've weighed the kayak. It's 23.2, as Dagger specified. It was 23 kilos. There's probably 200 grams of attachments on the boat, so very happy with that. But I'm going to weigh all this gear, and then I'm going to weigh the sea tug, and sort of add it all together and just see what I reckon it's worth, and in weight value, and how I can load the boat. So yeah, and that's part of this video, is I'm actually going to stack all this into the boat, excluding the sleeping bag there, which is in its aerated bag. Yeah, but I'll be stuffing it all in the boat and trying to get that sea tug in. As I indicated, of the trip I've got coming up, I expect there to be long, shallow sections where I simply can't drag the boat's not even going to float by itself, so I expect I'm going to need wheels. And also too, where I'm going to launch from is the car park is a fair distance from the river, so I'm going to use the sea tug wheels to get down to the river, and then obviously stack them on or in the boat, and then use them as required going down the length of the river, so to speak. So yeah, let's go through what I've got here. So most of you will recognise this sort of stuff, but I've got my skirt for the kayak, a set of Crocs. I like being in the kayak with the Crocs. I put the heels on, and it just gives you something under your heels. There's a helmet there, just in case. I don't think there'll be rapids, much more than 1 or 2, grade 1 or 2 rapids. So yeah, but I thought I'll chuck it in just in case I do strike a rough patch. So I can feel confident that I can go down there, particularly if I'm going by myself, so you know, I don't knock myself out and drown myself, so to speak. A hat, a neck buff, obviously a sump pump, a bilge pump for pumping out the kayak if I get a bit of water over time. That's a 4 litre bladder with 4 litres of water. Generally, as an overnighter, I'll take 4 litres, 3 or 4 litres, and that sort of gets me through a night. Cooks me tea, cooks me breakfast, a couple of cups of tea or whatever I do. And so yeah, and obviously I have a filter in my little kitchen kit here for filtering water there as well too. Obviously, if it's a 2-nighter, I'll use that 4 litres up on the first night, and then, you know, obviously we'll use the filter for the second night. I generally carry a little probably a 1 litre bottle in the boat with me, not a 1.2, not 1.2 or 1.5, just a 1 litre bottle. I've got a little bit of GoPro gear there and mounts for the kayak, a little light fishing rod. Might go on a river without a fishing rod. It's only little light stuff. In my vest over there, I've got a little set of pliers and a little tackle box. So that's with me all the time. So whenever I go out in the kayak, I've got that fishing rod with me. A pole for the GoPro mount up the front as well too. So with my kitchen gear, I've just got a little pot there with a stove, some cooking oil, salt, a little bit of milk, muesli bars. My stove's in there. That's just a bit of what I call my dry food, so a cup of soups and some noodles and sugar and tea bags and that sort of stuff. Sleeping mattress, that's my air chair. As I say, this is travelling ultra light, so just an air chair, an inflatable pillow, a one-man tent, and that's my sleeping bag not compacted up. I've also included this. This is what I would normally stack my food in, and so this is sort of like, I've got 4 cans of beer in there. Depending on the trip, I might take some cans of beer, but that's supposed to represent the food that I'd take. And normally, 1 or 2 nighters I'm taking fresh food. I'll take some steak or chops or some sizzle steaks, or I might even take some eggs and bacon and that sort of stuff, because you can just sort of do it. So yeah, so that's basically my as light as I can go sort of setup there as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to try and stack this in the kayak, and I'm also going to weigh this. I've just got a little scale set up over here, so I'm going to put it in the plastic tub, set it on the scale, weigh it, and then I'm going to try and stack it into the kayak and see how I go. Very conscious of balancing the kayak and not have everything into the rear stuff. So I'm thinking probably sleeping bag and tent up the front, stuffed up into the bow. Maybe a water bladder or something along those lines, and everything else in the back. But just looking at it, looks like it's all going to fit to me. But yeah, we'll see. As I say, I'm new to this sport, so learning as I go. So that's all that gear stacked up into the little plastic tub, and that comes in at 14.9 kilograms. So this is my more of my luxury setup, so to speak. So the key difference here from going lightweight to a bit more of a luxury setup is I've got a bigger tent. I've got a little table there I've got a Ergonomic style chair, so that makes it a bit heavier. Some more cooking gear, so a plate and a frying pan, a little table, a mess kit there, so stuff for washing your dishes at night. And the rest is basically the same. It just gives you a little bit more comfort around the camp, and so yeah, just makes it a bit more pleasant if you're going for a long-term sort of camping trip, and maybe you're going to spend a couple of nights in one spot, so to speak. So you've just got those more comforts. So that comes in at 18.1 kilos. So the other one, the ultralight setup, was probably about 15 kilos. We're going to work on 15 to 20 if you wanted to add a few bits and pieces, but certainly 15 or 16 kilos should pull it up. For this sort of trip, I'd expect to probably take a change of clothes. You might end up staying in a caravan park and having a nice pair of jeans and a pair of shoes. So I expect this setup to probably be more like about the 20-22 kilos. But from my perspective, I'm working on a lightweight setup being in the 15 to 20 kilo range, and for a comfort setup, I'm working on a more like a 20 to 25 kilo gear range. So guys, now I'm going to stack it into the kayak. So I'm going to experiment chucking stuff up into the rear of the kayak and underneath the hatch and just see how it all fits. The vest I'm wearing all the time, so that's part of my 100 kilo body weight that I'm allowing. So with clothes on and a vest, I weigh about 100 kilos. I've already weighed myself there. And so that's part of my body weight. We've got the camping gear, the body weight, and we're going to weigh this sea tug separately and just see what that weighs. So yeah, now I'm going to try and stack it all in and see if I can fit the sea tug into the boat, or whether I have to look at tying it on top of the boat. I've sat it up there deliberately because I thought, worst case scenario, it can be sat up there and tied down there on the deck behind me. I don't think that'll interfere with me at all. I think that'll be fine. So yeah, all right, we'll stack her in and see how we go. So guys, I've packed the boat with what I'm calling my luxury setup. So my 2-man tent and a bit of extra cooking gear and my Ergonomic chair, just a few more little comforts, a towel and some more clothing and that sort of stuff. And it all fits in. There's not a hell of a lot of spare room, but certainly it fits in and it's doable. I didn't take a lot of time packing it. I just sort of shoved it in, but certainly it fits fairly well. I've got my tent up the front here. I've got the mattress, I've got my Ergonomic chair, and obviously I'll compress that sleeping bag down in the compression sack, chuck it in the dry bag, and tuck that up there as well. So all that will tuck up the front, which is really good from a balance point of view. That gets a bit of weight up the front of the boat, really pleased with that. And then all the rest of my stuff, my camping gear, my towel, my frying pan, all that sort of stuff ended up in the back compartment as well. So also while I was at it, I just put the sea tug up on the back bulkhead there and just tried to paddle with it complete, so if it was in one unit, and probably could. It might get a bit annoying if you're doing a long haul, but it just tells me that if I've got a 2 kilometre section of water and then another kilometre section of shallow water that I need to put the sea tug back on, that I could leave it up there for the 2Ks and just pop it back off again rather than dismantle it. But certainly if there was no anticipation that I was going to need it for a couple of hours, I'd dismantle it. The pads go into the bulkhead there. Obviously I'll tie the wheels on top there, and the cross members can fit there underneath my legs. I don't think they would annoy me there at all. Certainly at worst case scenario, I can shove them up around the sides or do there's lots of options there. So I actually do fit in, guys, which is I'm really pleased about. It was sort of like being an experience. I really didn't know whether it was going to work or not. So for me to just sit in the shed here and spend an afternoon just fluffing around, so to speak, with this sort of stuff, gives me a bit of confidence that if I want to go and do a 2 or 3 or 4 or even probably a week-long trip in the kayak now, I know how I can pack it and that it's all going to fit in, and I can, if I need to, take the sea tug. So very pleased with that. But anyway, guys, pretty happy with that setup. So yeah, looking forward to getting out in the water. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and we'll hope to see you out in the water soon.